Deep in the vast grassland, there was a legend of a giant crane that could make anyone who found and saw it rich beyond their wildest dreams. Many people had tried to locate the elusive creature, but none had returned to tell the tale. Wayne was an experienced explorer who had heard of the legend and set out to find the giant crane. As he ventured deeper into the grassland, he realized that the scenery looked exactly the same, no matter which direction he faced. Wayne relied on his compass, but to his dismay, the needle began to spin uncontrollably. Panic set in as he realized he might never find his way back home. Just as he was about to give up hope, he heard a bird cry. Looking up, he saw a magnificent crane soaring above him. Excited and overjoyed, Wayne watched as the bird flew toward him. However, as it got closer, Wayne noticed the crane's beak was not like any other birds he had seen before. It was huge, almost like a weapon. Before he could react, the giant crane began attacking him with its sharp beak. Wayne tried to dodge and escape, but the bird was too fast and too strong. He fell to the ground, and as he lay there, he realized that something was wrong. His arms and legs were tangled up in the grass, and he couldn't move. The grass was holding him captive, and Wayne knew he would never be able to escape. Days passed, and Wayne's friends and family became worried when he failed to return. A search party was organized, but despite their best efforts, they could not locate him. Some say that Wayne's ghost still roams the grassland, warning others to stay away from the giant crane and its deadly grasp.
Lily was a young girl with a special talent for origami. She had been folding paper cranes for years and was determined to reach the goal of 1,000 cranes. Her grandmother had been ill for some time now, and Lily hoped that by folding 1,000 cranes, she could make a wish for her grandmother's recovery. Every day, Lily would fold and fold, creating beautiful paper cranes that she would line up on her windowsill. Her room was overflowing with paper, but she did not care. All she could think about was her grandmother and her wish. One night, while Lily was folding her cranes, there was a knock on her bedroom door. She was startled, as she knew her parents were out for the evening. When she opened the door, she was met with a giant origami creature. The creature had a head that looked like a giant cockroach and 2 wings in the back. The creature moved one of his wings, and a gust of wind swept through the room, causing many of Lily's paper cranes to fly out the window. Lily was furious and scared at the same time. She had worked so hard on her cranes, and now they were gone. The creature identified himself as the origami angel, clarifying that anyone who folds 1,000 paper cranes is entitled to a wish, but in fulfilling that wish, he will lose one of his wings. Something he hopes to avoid. Lily was heartbroken, but she had an idea. She offered the origami angel one of her arms in exchange for him granting her wish. The origami angel thought for a moment and agreed to the deal. Lily made her wish, and the origami angel nodded before disappearing. Weeks later, Lily's grandmother made a full recovery, and Lily was overjoyed to see that her hard work and determination had paid off. However, she now found herself with only one arm, unable to do origami or fold a paper crane again.
Once upon a time, there was a toy crane that sat in the corner of a young boy's bedroom. The boy loved to play with the crane during the day, but at night, it would often become the source of his nightmares. One night, as the boy lay in bed, he heard a strange noise coming from the corner of his room. He opened his eyes to see the toy crane slowly moving on its own. Its arm extended and retracted, as if it was searching for something. The boy sat up in bed, his heart racing with fear. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The crane continued to move, its metal joints creaking and groaning with each mechanical movement. Suddenly, the crane's arm shot out and grabbed hold of the boy's blanket. It began to pull the blanket towards itself, as if it wanted to take it for itself. The boy screamed and tried to pull the blanket back, but the crane was too strong. As the crane continued to tug at the blanket, the boy noticed something strange happening to the room. The shadows on the walls began to twist and contort, forming strange shapes that seemed to move of their own accord. The boy tried to get out of bed, but he found that he couldn't move. It was as if he was trapped in a web of fear and terror. The crane continued to pull at the blanket, inching closer and closer to the boy. Just as the crane was about to snatch the blanket away, the boy's parents burst into the room. The sudden noise and light seemed to startle the crane, and it retreated back to its corner with a metallic screech. The boy's parents were confused and frightened by what they had seen, but they dismissed it as a nightmare. But the boy knew better. He knew that the toy crane was alive, and that it would come back for him again, night after night, until it had claimed him for its own.
Once upon a time, there was a worker named John who operated a crane at a construction site. He was skilled and experienced, and his coworkers relied on him to move heavy building materials from one place to another. One day, as John was craning up a load of heavy steel beams, a sudden gust of wind came out of nowhere. The wind was so strong that it knocked some of the beams off the crane's hook, sending them plummeting towards the ground below. John's blood ran cold as he realized that his coworkers were directly beneath the falling beams. He knew that some of them would not have enough time to get out of the way. He felt helpless and afraid as he watched the beams hurtling towards the ground. But then, something strange happened. The falling beams suddenly froze in midair, as if they had hit an invisible wall. John stared in shock and disbelief as he realized that the beams were no longer falling. They were suspended in the air, directly above some of his coworkers. As John looked around, he saw a figure standing nearby. It was Power Man, the city's superhero. Power Man was using his telekinesis superpower to stop the beams from falling and crushing John's coworkers. The workers below started to cheer and shout as they realized that they were safe. John felt a sense of relief wash over him, knowing that no one had been hurt. He watched as Power Man carefully lowered the beams to the ground and then disappeared into the distance. But little did John know, there was a dark secret to Power Man's actions that day. In reality, Power Man was the owner of a large money lending company that charged high interest rates to its borrowers. Many of the workers at the construction site owed Power Man quite a lot of money, and he did not want them to die because he wanted to continue making money from their high interest rates. As John and his coworkers went back to work, they had no idea that the man who had just saved their lives was also the one who was exploiting them for his own financial gain. The city continued to look up to Power Man as its superhero, never suspecting the dark secret that lay behind his actions.
Growing up in Crane, Texas, the oil and gas industry was a constant presence in my life. Crane was a small city founded in 1927, and the rich history of oil and gas exploration was woven into the very fabric of the community. As a child, I would often watch the pumping units and drilling rigs dotting the horizon and wonder about the world below. When my family moved away from Crane, I never forgot the sights, sounds, and smells of the oil industry. I knew I wanted to be a part of it someday, and my passion for math and science led me to pursue a degree in petroleum engineering. After graduation, I landed a job with a large oil company, and I spent most of my time traveling to drilling and well sites. I loved being out in the field, surrounded by the machinery and the hustle and bustle of the industry. However, one day, things took a terrifying turn. I was at an oil drilling site, and the drilling machine was working hard. The oil workers told me they had drilled quite deep, and suddenly, a loud sound erupted from beneath the ground. At first, we thought it was just the drill hitting a particularly hard layer of rock. But then, the sound grew louder and more intense, like an evil shout or a beast roaring from the depths. The oil field started shaking, and we felt like we were in the midst of an earthquake. We all ran away from the site, but the shaking continued. The ground started to crumble and give way, and before we knew it, a massive hole had opened up, swallowing all the equipment and machinery. Could this event be a sign that the Earth is pushing back against human activity? It was a terrifying experience, and it made me realize how important it is to be mindful of the impact that our actions can have on the environment. As someone who works in the oil and gas industry, I now strive to ensure that we do things the right way and minimize any damage that we may cause. I believe that we can strike a balance between industry and environmental responsibility, and it's up to each of us to do our part. Despite the scary experience, my love for the industry and my hometown of Crane, Texas has never wavered. I'm proud to be a part of this industry, and I'm committed to making sure that we take care of our environment for generations to come.
Crane flies are a harmless type of insect that are often mistaken for mosquitoes due to their long legs and slender bodies. Unlike mosquitoes, they do not pose any harm to humans as they neither bite nor sting, and they do not transmit any diseases. In fact, they are considered beneficial insects since they help in breaking down organic matter in the soil. However, large groups of crane flies can still be intimidating and unnerving sometimes. One night, a young woman named Kathy was walking home from a friend's house. She had enjoyed a lovely evening of conversation and laughter, and she was feeling content as she made her way down the quiet street. The street was lined with lampposts that cast a warm glow over the pavement, providing a peaceful ambience to the night. However, as Kathy neared one of the lampposts, she noticed something strange. There was a large group of crane flies hovering around the light. At first, she didn't think much of it, but as she got closer, she realized just how many crane flies there were. The group was so large that it looked like a dark cloud hovering around the light. As Kathy continued walking, she watched in horror as the group of crane flies began to move away from the light and towards her. She could feel her heart racing in her chest as she realized that the insects were headed straight towards her. Despite knowing that crane flies were harmless, the sight of so many of them moving as a group was unnerving. Kathy tried to pick up the pace, but the group of crane flies seemed to be following her. She could feel them brushing against her face and arms, and she started to get more and more scared. As the group of insects closed in on her, Kathy finally broke into a run. She sprinted down the street, her heart pounding in her chest. The group of crane flies was still following her, but she didn't dare look back. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Kathy reached her front door and rushed inside, quickly closing the door behind her. After catching her breath, Kathy looked around and saw that only a small number of crane flies had managed to get inside. She killed them easily and looked at the dead crane flies on the ground, still shaken by the encounter with the harmless insects.
A college student, Crane, had always loved the thrill of riding his motorcycle through deserted mountain roads, but this time, the weather had other plans. The heavy rain was making it impossible for him to see the road in front of him, and he could barely keep his motorcycle upright. As he rode, he felt like there was a car behind him, and he could see the dim glow of headlights in his rearview mirror. Thinking it would be safer to let the car pass, Crane pulled over to the side of the road, but when he looked back, he realized there was no car behind him. The only sound he could hear was the sound of raindrops hitting the pavement. Shaking his head, he got back on his bike and continued down the road. Suddenly, he saw a figure in the middle of the road. It was a person dressed all in white, holding a white umbrella. Crane was perplexed as to why anyone would be out on this deserted road in such a heavy downpour, and he couldn't see any houses or shelters nearby. He slowly rode past the pedestrian, and even though he didn't turn his head, he could feel the person's cold stare sending shivers down his spine. Trying to shake off the unnerving encounter, Crane continued on his way, but the road only seemed to get stranger. As he approached a bus stop, he saw that everything was painted white: the bench, the sign, even the garbage can. He felt like he was in a dream and was starting to get scared. Crane decided to pick up speed and get off this strange road as quickly as possible. He finally reached a main road and breathed a sigh of relief as he rode back home. But when he tried to review the footage from his dash cam, he found that the part of the video where he encountered the white-clad pedestrian and the eerie white bus stop was gone. He couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off about that road, and he never went back again. Joey was an avid painter who loved to create oil paintings of birds and nature. He had a collection of his own paintings, which he proudly displayed in his house. One day, Joey went to a national park known for its many cranes. He set up his easel and started painting a beautiful crane that had landed nearby. After he finished the painting, Joey went back to his car and picked up a shotgun. He had a dark side, and after painting birds, he liked to shoot and kill them for souvenirs. He aimed the shotgun at the crane he had just painted, with a wicked grin on his face. He didn't care that he was breaking the law by killing wildlife in the park. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, he suddenly felt weak and warm all over. He looked at his hand and saw that he was slowly disappearing. In a matter of seconds, Joey was gone. Hours later, a national park ranger found Joey's car, painting equipment, and shotgun, but there was no sign of Joey. No one ever saw him again. Eventually, Joey's family decided to sell his house, and as they were taking down the bird paintings, they came across a new one that caught their eye. In the painting, there was a crane that looked just like the one Joey had painted in the national park. A little further away, they saw a painter who looked like Joey, but he appeared scared and worried, as if he were trapped in the painting and couldn't move. Could it be that Joey was somehow sealed inside his own painting? Crane Community Park is a park in Hawaii, USA. It is situated nearby the well-known Leonard's Bakery, famous for its delicious malasadas, a fried type of donut. The following is a fictional story that I wrote, which takes place in this Crane Community Park in Kaimuki, Hawaii. The park features several basketball baskets, which attract local players from the area. One day, 6 young men were playing basketball when a homeless, dirty, and frightening-looking old man slowly approached them. Initially, The young men ignored the homeless man and continued with their game, but as he drew nearer, they asked if they could help him. The homeless man held out his hand, indicating that he wanted some money, and one of the basketball players handed him some change, hoping he would leave and they could resume their game. However, the homeless person did not leave and suddenly sat down on the basketball court. He began whispering something that sounded like a spell and threw the change in the air. To the young men's surprise, the coins let out a loud noise like firecrackers and then vanished, leaving behind a heavy cloud of smoke. When the smoke cleared, the homeless man was nowhere to be seen. Despite searching for him, the homeless man was never found again. The young men on the basketball court were left bewildered by what had just happened. However, an interesting occurrence took place after that day. The basketball skill of the young man who gave the homeless man money improved significantly, becoming so good that he eventually played at the college level and earned a scholarship. Rumors started circulating that he had been blessed by the homeless man who had vanished into thin air.